Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lilas, chapter 7, verse 147. We will be starting to read from today. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Verse 147. E mata sarva sutrera vyakhyana sushuniya sakala sannyasi kahe vinaya kariya. E mata, in this way, sarva sutrera, of all the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra, vyakhyan, explanation, shuniya, by hearing, sakala, all, sannyasi, the groups of Mayavadi sannyasis, kahe, said, vinaya, humbly, kariya, doing so. Translation: when all the Mayavadi sannyasis thus heard the explanation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the basis of Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan, they spoke very humbly. So yesterday, this is where we left our reading yesterday on verse 146. Sambandh, which is the relationship, Abhideya, which is functional duties, and Prayojan is the goal of life. Purport: everyone who actually desires to understand the Vedanta philosophy must certainly accept the explanation of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Vaishnavacharyas, who have also commented on the Vedanta Sutra according to the principles of Bhakti Yoga. After hearing the explanation of Vedanta Sutra from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the sannyasis headed by Prakashananda Saraswati became very humble and obedient to the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Verse 148. Vedamaya Murti Tumi Sakshat Narayana Kshama Aparadha Purve Ye Kelun Nindana. Vedmaya, transformation of the Vedic knowledge. Murti, form. Tumi, you. Sakshat, directly. Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kshama, excuse. Aparadha, offense. Purve, before. Ye, that. Kyalun, we have done. Nindana, criticism. Translation: dear sir, your Vedic knowledge personified and are directly Narayan himself. Kindly excuse us for the offenses we previously committed by criticizing you. Purport: the complete path of Bhakti Yoga is based upon the knowledge of process of becoming humble and submissive. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the Mayavadi sannyasis were very humble and submissive after hearing his explanation of the Vedanta Sutra, and they begged to be pardoned for the offenses they had committed by criticizing the Lord for simply chanting and dancing and not taking part in the study of the Vedanta Sutra. We are propagating the Krishna consciousness movement simply by following in the steps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We may not be very well versed in the Vedanta Sutra aphorisms and may not understand their meaning, but we follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas, and because of our strictly and obediently following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is to be understood that we know everything regarding the Vedanta Sutra. Verse 149. Se haite sannyasira phiri gela mana Krishna Krishna nama sada karaye grahana. Se haite, from that time, sannyasira, all the Mayavadi sannyasis, phiri, turn, gela, became, mana, mind, Krishna Krishna, the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, nama, name, sada, always, karaya, do, grahana, accept. Translation: from that moment when the Mayavadi sannyasis heard the explanation of the Vedanta Sutra from the Lord, their minds changed, and on the instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they too chanted Krishna Krishna always. Purport: in this connection, it may be mentioned that sometimes the Sahajiya class of devotees opine that Prakashananda Saraswati and Prabodhananda Saraswati are the same man. Prabodhananda Saraswati was a great Vaishnava devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Prakashananda Saraswati, the head of the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares, was a different person. Prabodhananda Saraswati belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya, whereas Prakashananda Saraswati belonged to the Shankaracharya Sampradaya. Prabodhananda Saraswati wrote a number of books, among which are the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Radha Rasa Sudhanidhi, Sangeeta Madhava, Vrindavan Shatak and Navadvip Shatak. While traveling in southern India, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Prabodha Nanda Saraswati, who had two brothers, Venkat Bhatt and Tirumalaya Bhatt, who were Vaishnavas of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Gopal Bhatt Goswami was a nephew of Prabodhananda Saraswati. From historical records, it is found that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu travelled in South India in the year 1433 Shakabda, which is AD 1511, during the Chaturmasa period, and it was at that time he met Prabodhananda, who belonged to the Ramanuja Sampradaya. How then could the same person meet him as a member of the Shankara Sampradaya in 1435 Shakabda, 2 years later? It is to be concluded that the guests of Sahajya Sampradaya, that Prabodhananda Saraswati and Prakashananda Saraswati were the same man, is a mistaken idea. Verse 150, E mate tan sabara kshami aparadha sabakare Krishna nama karile prasada. E mate, in this way, tan sabara, of all the sannyasis, kshami, excusing, aparadha, offense, sabakare, all of them, Krishna nama, the holy name of Krishna, karila, gave, prasada, as mercy. Translation: Thus Lord Chaitanya excused all the offences of the Mayavadi sannyasis and very mercifully blessed them with Krishna Nam. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the mercy incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is addressed by Srila Rupa Goswami as Mahabhadanya or the most magnanimous incarnation. Srila Rupa Goswami also says, Karunaya avatarinaha kalau. It is only by his mercy that he has descended in this age of Kali. Here this is exemplified. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like to see Mayavadi sannyasis because he thought of them as offenders to the lotus feet of Krishna, but here he excuses them. Tan sabara kshami aparadha. This is an example in preaching. Apani achari bhakti Sikhayamu Sabare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us that those whom preachers meet are almost all offenders who are opposed to Krishna consciousness, but it's a preacher's duty to convince them of the Krishna consciousness movement and then induce them to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Our propagation of the Sankirtan movement is continuing despite many opponents, and people are taking up this chanting process even in remote parts of the world like Africa, by inducing the offenders to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exemplified the success of Krishna consciousness movement. We should follow very respectfully in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, and there is no doubt that we shall be successful in our attempts. Verse 151, Tabe Saba Sannyasi Mahaprabhu ke laiya Bhiksha karilena Sabhe Mathe Pasaiya. Tabe, after this, all sannyasi, the Mayavadi sannyasis, Mahaprabhu ke Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laiya, taking him. Bhiksha karilena, took prasadam or took lunch. Sabe, all together, Mathe, in the middle, Pasaiya, seating them. Translation: after this, all the sannyasis took the Lord into their midst, and thus they all took their meal together. Purport: previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had neither mixed or talked with Mayavadi sannyasis, but now he took lunch with them. It is to be concluded that when Lord Chaitanya included them to chant Hare Krishna and excuse them for their offences, they were purified, and therefore there was no objection in taking lunch or Bhagavad Prasadam with them. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew that the food had not been offered to the deity, Mayavadi sannyasis do not worship the deity, or if they do so, they generally worship the deity of Lord Shiva or the Panchopasana, Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Durga Devi, Ganesha and Surya. Here we do not find any mention of the demigods or Vishnu, and yet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted food in the midst of the sannyasis on the basis that they had chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and that he had excused their offences. Verse 152, Bhiksha Kari Mahaprabhu Aila Vasaghara Hena Chitra Lila Kare Gauranga Sundara. Diksha, accepting food from others. Kari, accepting. Mahaprabhu Lord Chaitanya Aila returned Vasaghara to his resident. Hena does. Chitra Lila, wonderful pastimes. Kare does. Gauranga, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sundara, very beautiful. Translation: after taking lunch among the Mayavadi sannyasis, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gaura Sundar, returned to his residence. Thus the Lord performs his wonderful pastimes. Verse 153. Chandrasekhara Tapana Mishra Ara Sanatana Shuni Dekhi Anandita Sabakar Mana. Chandrasekhara Tapan Mishra is Tapan Mishra, Ara and Sanatan is Sanatan. Shuni is hearing, Dekhi seeing, Anandita very pleased, Sabakar of all of them Mana minds. Translation: hearing the arguments of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and seeing his victory, Chandrasekhar, Tapan Mishra and Sanatan Goswami were all extremely pleased. But here is an example of how a sannyasi should preach. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Varanasi, he went there alone, not with a big party. Locally, however, he made friendship with Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra, and Sanatan Goswami also came to see him. Therefore, although he did not have many friends there, due to his sound preaching and his victory in arguing with the local sannyasis on the Vedanta philosophy, he became greatly famous in that part of the country, as explained in the next verse. Verse 154. Prabhu ke dekhite aisa sakala sannyasi Prabhura prashamsa kare sab Varanasi. Prabhu ke unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dekhite, to see, I say, they came, sakala, all sannyasi, the Mayavadi sannyasis. Prabhura of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, prashamsa, praise, kare, they do, saba, all Varanasi, the city of Varanasi. Translation: many Mayavadi sannyasis of Varanasi came to see Lord Chaitanya after this incident, and the entire city praised him. Verse 155. Varanasi Puri Aila Shri Krishna Chaitanya Puri Saha Sarvaloka Haila Mahadhanya. Varanasi, of the name Varanasi, Puri city, Aila came Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Puri the city, Saha with, Sarvalok all the people, Haila came, Mahadhanya thankful. Translation: Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the city of Varanasi and all of its people were very thankful. Verse 156. Laksha Laksha Loka Aisa Prabhu ke dekhite Mahabhira Haile Dware Nare Praveshite. Laksha hundreds of thousands, Loka people, I say, came Prabhu ke unto the Lord, dekhite to see, Mahabhira a great crowd, Haila there happened, Dware at the door, Nare may not, Praveshite to enter. Translation: the crowd at the door of his residence was so great that it numbered hundreds of thousands. So we'll continue our reading from 157 verse onwards. Thank you for joining in these most sweet pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.